أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون أياما معدودات فمن كان منكم مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر وعلى الذين يطيقونه فدية طعام مسكين فمن تطوع خيرا فهو خير له وأن تصوموا خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصمه ومن كان مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر يريد الله بكم اليسر ولا يريد بكم العسر ولتكملوا العدة ولتكبروا الله على ما هداكم ولعلكم تشكرون وإذا سألك عبادي عني فإني قريب أجيب دعوة الداع إذا دعان فليستجيبوا لي وليؤمنوا بي لعلهم يرشدون صدق الله العظيم.
الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد الصادق الأمين المبعوث رحمة للعالمين وعلى آله الطاهرين الطيبين وعلى أصحابه أجمعين وعلى أزواجه أمهات المؤمنين وعلى ذريته إلى يوم الدين. سبحانك اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا اللهم علما وعملا وأدبا متقبلا آمين يا رب العالمين. Inshallah, we read a couple of pages from the tafsir of Imam al-Baydawi. May Allah be well pleased with him and grant him mercy and benefit us with him and with you. Ameen. On the eve of the blessed month of Ramadan, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان. So we will be reading from the ayah 183 until the end of that page, inshallah, from Surat al-Baqara, the second surah of the Holy Quran, as explained by our great grand teacher, Imam al-Baydawi, rahimahullah ta'ala, from Anwar al-Tanzil wa Asrar al-Ta'wil, the lights of revelation and the secrets of interpretation of the Holy Quran. When he said, as translated, O you who believe, prescribed for you is the fast, just as it has been prescribed for those before you. So kutiba, in the sense not of just writing, just as kitab has many meanings, so kataba here means made obligatory, and a perfect term that connects with the sense of writing is to prescribe. Another term would be command or enjoin or order or make obligatory. He says, meaning prophets, yani by those before you, meaning the prophets and the communities from the time of Adam, or you could say the nations, prophets and nations from the time of Adam, upon him peace. Look at that lofty sense. Therein is an emphasis on the ruling because of that loftiness. Encouragement to practice for the same cause, and gratification, which is a translation for tatyib al-nafs, like to make you feel good, because look who you are doing, you are using as your models, all of those prophets and their communities. The Sawm, fasting lexically, is to refrain from what a person craves, MashaAllah. And in the sacred law, to refrain from all of the fast-breaking acts, al-mufattirat, for they are most of what a person desires, يعني food, drink and sex. Perhaps you will beware يعني of sins, يعني guard yourself, to beware, to guard yourself. So you see here is where fear is not enough or not correct for لعلكم تتقون, because he says تتقون what? تتقون المعاصي. I should have used a stronger sense than sins, perhaps rebellious sins, because معاصي has the sense of rebellion in it and disobedience. So how do you just fear sins? It's not enough. You have to guard yourself. It has to be an active thing, an active measure that you take as results. So block away and beware. Okay. For fasting breaks desire, which is the starting point of sin. As he said upon him peace, he must fast, for truly fasting will be a gelding for him. A castration, but it's the term used for animals, al-wija, for rams and other animals, where gelding is permitted. As for castration of human beings, it is of course completely haram. And those castrates that were used were obtained thus. They were not actually castrated in the Islamic realm, or under Islamic authorities. So those that were used, for example, in palaces and so forth, under Ottoman times and so on and so forth. Allah Ta'ala A'lam. But definitely Islam, it is not permitted to castrate oneself or others among human beings. And there are people who will say, when you quote that hadith, well, for me, so they bring it back to their own case as if it is normative, it increases my desire to fast. Subhanallah. I always thought that this was inappropriate to bring out like that, to say, first of all, it's a challenge of the hadith, so it's a sinful thing to be meaning, even accidentally. But I was happy to find a reference to that kind of statement and objection in Ibn Hajar's Fath al-Bari, so I included it in the footnote, where he says the claim that fasting increases rather than decreases heat in the blood is true only at the onset of fasting. It abates in time. Give it a couple of days, give it a few days. Then that rebellion in the blood will be silenced. Subhanallah. In fact, it turns out to be a confirmation of the Prophet's hadith about the blood, that the shaitan runs in the blood of human beings. So of course it grumbles when it is being denied its nutrition. So that is the way of grumbling. Subhanallah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. So that is the sense of that hadith, the gelding. Or beware what? From performing it improperly, the fasting, in light of its noble origin and antiquity, and in the sense that it goes back to the time of the father of human beings. numbered days. Numbered days, أياما معدودات, meaning time bound with a precise number, يعني time bound with a beginning and an end, with a precise number of days, or a few days, يعني in the general sense, and interpreted figuratively. So look how he always moves from, this is his rule, يعني move from literal sense to figurative sense, or specific exclusive sense, and general more inclusive or all-inclusive sense, right? As we can also say figuratively that the reverse is also true. When you say countless, it means a lot. Doesn't mean that literally you cannot count them, but it means a lot. And a few, figuratively, like when we say you can count them on the fingers of the hands, that means it can be more than 10, but it means a few, so that's the figurative sense. And the first sense is literal. For a small amount of money is counted strictly, but a large one is poured down without count. It, meaning ayyaman, days, is in the accusative, not because of as-siyam, yani sumu ayyaman ma'dudat. That's not what is meant by the accusative. In case you will parse it this way, he's saying. Well, why not, you might ask, since there is a separator between them, that's why. But the implying of sumu, which is indicated by as-siyam. So, in other words, it's not the direct object of prescribed. It is the direct object of the implied fast, which is in the implied imperative plural sumu, which is indicated by as-siyam. كتب عليكم الصيام. يعني كتب عليكم أن تصوموا أياما معدودة. But it's meant thereby is one Ramadan, because it is mentioned in the next verse. But it is not the only meaning possible. Or, that's why he continues with this sequence. Whatever fast was obligatory before Ramadan became so, and it was abrogated by it, namely Ashura, as is well established by the Sirah and the Hadiths, or 3 days of each month. So subhanallah, look at those sunnahs, mu'akkada in the case of Ashura, and I think also mu'akkada for the 3 months, for fasting every month, because the Prophet ﷺ repeatedly emphasized it. And that is, to start with, the qawl is more emphatic than the amal in the prophetic hadiths. So therefore, that is also evidence that it is also mu'akkad. But definitely the Ashura was mu'akkad, as being the obligatory fast before Ramadan was made obligatory and superseded it. So that could also be implied here, because later Ramadan becomes the explicit meaning intended. Sawmu Ramadan, or Shahru Ramadan alladhi unzila fihi al-Qur'an. Or because of just as it has been prescribed as a temporal vessel, meaning the fact that it was the practice of the heavenly ummahs before you that followed a prophet, all of them respectively, then in general terms, in other words, not meaning Ramadan or Ashura or the 3 specifically, but generally speaking. In all of those cases, you must fast. Or as a second direct object of prescribed to you, which also confirms the sense that it is prescribed to you. يعني كتب عليكم الصيام, and then the second thing that كتب عليكم is أيام معدودة by extension. It is also said, its meaning is, so when he says it is also said, waqil, that as a rule is that now we move on to other meanings, but they are definitely weaker. And then when he says also wayajuz, that is also a sense that, well, but it is weak. It is weaker. But not so weak that it does not deserve mention even. Because there are other things that he leaves out. That it does not even turn to them. And all of this is illustration of the polysemy or multiplicity of meanings of the Holy Qur'an, which is endless, as stated in the Qur'an and in the Hadith. In light of, so it's also said its meaning is your fast is like their fast in the amount of days, yani 30 or 29, or yani more or less. So it can be 40 and up to 50, in light of what is related to the effect that Ramadan was made obligatory for Christians, although according to Qunawi, Ramadan is exclusive to the Ummah of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, but it fell in very cold weather or in very hot weather, so they moved it to the spring and added 20 days as expiation, hence 50. So it was 30 before, and it was in the time of Ramadan, but with the change of climate through the lunar calendar, they decided to put it at a time when it's easier every single year. And as expiation, they added days. Another 20 days as expiation for changing it. So I tried to find evidence to that effect, which I mentioned in the footnotes, or those who are interested. And I did find in the Christian East, especially, including Jerusalem, Alexandria, Constantinople, and Abyssinia, and the Ethiopian church. It is also said they added that after they were afflicted by large-scale death, I mean, regardless of moving it, but because of plagues. Therefore, whoever among you is sick with a kind of sickness where fasting would harm him or be too difficult for him, so look at the dawabits, yani the parameters of how we define sick. Of course, we'll have to go to the books of fiqh for precision. Or on a journey, or riding on a journey, yani you are in the midst of a journey, you're not at a pit stop or resting or able to fast, yani resting for more than 3 days, therefore you are a resident. You are not a resident. Therein is a sign that whoever is to travel during the day does not break his fast. Ima is a sign. I sometimes translate it as a nod, because that's the literal meaning of ima, and nod is also, used sometimes as to mean a sign, an allusion, a nod. It's less than a reference. It's closer to an allusion, but it's weaker than that. It is like a hint. Hint is another term also for ima. Hint. إثناء اليوم يعني in the midst of the day. Then a number of alternative day, that is fasting of the number of sick days or travel days is due by him or her on a number of alternative days if they broke their fast. In other words, they might have not broken their fast if they do not want to. Okay. So again, these are rulings that are not made specific or restrictive by the hadiths from which the fiqhi rulings of the mazahib later emerge. The conditional protasis, meaning the shart, yani the clause, conditional clause that established the condition. And then the jawab is called apodosis. So protasis and apodosis. And they are both conditional protasis and conditional apodosis. And the governing annex, يعني the mudaf, and governed annex, يعني the mudaf ilay, were suppressed as they were all abundantly clear. And I underlined them so that you can see what is being referred to in the previous lines. So that dispenses with the footnote to make it lighter. It was also read in the accusative. فَلْيَصُمْ عِدَّةً. Let him fast a number. And this is related as grammatically correct by al-Kisai. It is obviously not mass transmitted. Why? Two words, مخالف للرسم. It goes against the rasm of the Qur'an, so it could not possibly be mass transmitted. It was one of the non-negotiable rules of admitting something as correct reading is that it has to be conforming to the script of the Holy Quran. Even if with different dots, with different vowelization, different rules. So at least that before we start discussing, we have to have that. And then we discuss, well, who narrates it that way? Who reads it that way among the, and if is it mass transmitted or not? This is in the sense of an optional dispensation, as we alluded and indicated before. It was also said to be a categorical obligation per the Zahiriyya, the literalists, of which, of course, Ibn Hazm is the most famous example. Abu Huraira took that position. He has his own fiqh, which was chronicled by Shaykh Qal'aji, Abdul Mu'ti, موسوعة فقه أبي هريرة, in a single volume. And like for example, considering gold jewelry as haram across the board, across the genders, not just for men. And due by those who can bear to perform it. Those who can bear to fast if they break their fast. وعلى المطيقين للصيام إن أفطروا. So they were bearing to fast while traveling, for example, or while sick, if they push themselves, presumably. So, يعني an optional dispensation, and they took it, then it's due by that. An expiatory fine to feed someone in want. يعني fidya is expiatory fine. طعام مسكين, to feed someone in want, explained as half a sa' of grain or a sa' of other than grain. Explained in the footnote as 1.1 kilo and 2.2 kilo respectively per the majority, and then the Hanafi measure, which differs slightly, respectively. Per the jurists of Iraq, and then one mud according to the jurists of the Hijaz. And then again the footnote explains the exact weightage. They were given such an option as a dispensation when they were first commanded to fast, and it was difficult for them because they were not used to it. Then it was abrogated, meaning by the next verse. Nafi' and Ibn Amir read it, fidyatu ta'amin, an expiatory fine of food. So there is a construct here of mudaf and mudaf ilayh instead of fidyatun ta'amu miskin. يعني مبتدا and the badal, or مبتدا and the second مبتدا, or مبتدا and khabar of a suppressed second مبتدا. يعني فدية وهو or وهي طعام مسكين. There is multiple explanations for how the principal reading here chosen by the Imam is parsed, and then فدية طعام is مضاف and مضاف إليه in these two readings as an annexed construct, and masakin, this is what annexed construct means, and masakin, those in want, I translate those in want according to the Shafi'i sense, because that is how the Imam would want it, since in the Shafi'i mazhab there is a difference between miskin and faqir, therefore you cannot translate it as poor, it has to be different. And masakin, those in want, in the plural. It was also read yutawwaquna, and these are non-mass transmitted as shown in the footnote, meaning yukallafuna, who are tasked with it, and yuqalladuna, who are wreathed with it, from tawq in the sense of both taqa, capacity, and qilada, wreath, yani garland. Also read yatatawwaquna, meaning yatakallafuna, who task themselves with it, or yataqalladuna, who wear it on their necks. It was also read yattawwaquna, the same as the immediately preceding one with contraction, yani yatafa'al is contracted as yaffa'al. That is very frequent. Fourth alternate reading, non-mass transmitted, yutayyaquna and yattayyaquna, both from yatyuquna, from fay'ala and tafay'ala, in the sense of yutawwaquna and yatatawwaquna. See 1 and 2 above. This is where the waw and the ya, which are fluid anyway as weak vowels, or the weak letters of triliteral, and center ya, center waw, they are interchangeable really, and this is what happens, and you have those alternate forms. On the basis of these readings, a second meaning is possible, and that's why it bears mention. See, because you might wonder, why bring up non-mass transmitted readings? Because they have a role in explaining the multiplicity of meanings of the Holy Qur'an through the Arabic language. And when those alternatives exist not only in the dictionary of the Arabs, which is their poetry, but also in the non-mass transmitted readings, which are hadiths in effect, which are lone narrated hadiths, have the same status, then it bears mention. Of course it bears mention. Namely, the dispensation for whoever is fatigued and feels exhausted by the fast, old men and women, for example, to break it and pay the expiatory fine. In this scenario, the verse is definitive, meaning according to Q and SK in the footnote, meaning al-Qunawi and as-Sayalkuti. Qunawi, an Ottoman mufassir, and Sayalkuti, an Indian logician mufassir, who did just the first juz of Tafsir al-Baydawi. But Qunawi did all 30. So, meaning unabrogated, according to them. The most widespread reading was thus interpreted, that is, they fasted to their utmost capacity. Yani, tawq here meaning utmost capacity. And whoever acts voluntarily out of goodness, not in the sense of fasting, but by adding to the expiatory fine, and you make it more than what is the minimum that is owed, and the footnote explains how, the modalities, then such, meaning then acting freely, or goodness itself, is better for him. And that you fast, the address is to the endurant ones. O endurant ones, yani those who can bear it, or tasked ones, those who qualify them, who task themselves with it. having striven to your best capacity. Or, yet another meaning, recipients of the dispensation of breaking their fast. They are recipients, but then they still task themselves. Or even they take the dispensation so as to be subsumed under the sick and the traveler. They do not take the dispensation because that you fast is better for you. So you can take the dispensation, but you do not take it. So the sick and the traveler are subsumed under that. Is better for you. Then what? Then the expiatory fine, that's the first sense, or supererogatory goodness. Yani, it is better to fast than to take the dispensation and pay extra fidya and give tatawwa in your fidya on top of the minimum required. Or both. Yani both the expiatory fine and the extra tatawwa gift, and the delay in the making up. Yani it is better for you also to delay making it up. Better than to delay making it up. If you but knew. If you have a makeup to do, then it's better to do it quickly. If you but knew the merits and acquittance of debt that fasting entails, its apodosis, as we said, the jawab al-shart, the final part of the conditional clause is suppressed. If you knew, then what? That's the apodosis, it is suppressed. It is indicated by what immediately precedes it, that is, you would have chosen to do it. See how concise the Holy Qur'an is, and despite that, so many multiple meanings that we do not see. We have to read between the lines provided by the tafsir. We have to read between the lines of the ayats, Sharifah. It was also said, its meaning is, if you were of the people of learning and thoughtful deliberation, you would know that fasting is better for you than that. The month of Ramadan is an inchoative mubtada, of which the enunciative, the khabar, is what immediately follows, or the enunciative of a suppressed inchoative subordinate as that, namely, is the month of Ramadan. يعني هذا شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. عرفنا كيف؟ So that's the second gloss. The third gloss, or a substitute for as-siyam, the fast, in the previous ayah. عليكم الصيام, and then بدل شهر رمضان الذي. In this sense, what we're talking about is, in fact, the first of its glosses. شهر Ramadan, not Ashura, not the rest, not the general sense of that. Right. By assuming the suppression of the governing annex as, quote, prescribed to you is fasting, the fast of the month of Ramadan. There is the badal, underlined. It was also read in the accusative, shahra. These are all non-mass transmitted. By implying sumu, do fast, or in the sense that it is the direct object of and that you fast. وَأَن تَصُومُوا شَهْرَ رَمَضَانَ. In which position there is weakness. Of course, he can say that because it's non-mass transmitted. This is confirmation that it's non-mass transmitted, because of course the adab of the mufassirin is never to question the grammar of a mass transmitted reading, because in tafsir, mass transmission supplants Arabic grammar. It dictates Arabic grammar. So that's why people took offense at Zamakhshari, and Baydawi did not follow Zamakhshari when he would just say, there is weakness in this, there is weakness in that, when he's talking about even if it's alone mass transmitted, like Abu Amr's reading. for example, will pick this vowelization, and the grammarians go against. Who cares? The grammarians follow the Quran, not vice versa. The Quran, so the Quran is normative for grammar, for Arabic grammar, not what precedes the Quran. Normative for the Quran. See, so whenever they see something new, something that they are not used to, etc., they have to bow to that. And of course, the adab of the mufassirin sometimes yani takes offense at the adab of the grammarians, because they lack that stance. Right. Or as a substitute for a number of alternative days. Ayyaman. So it has to be accusative. Ayyaman ma'dudat. There is the accusative. So as a badal for that. So this is all to explain non-mass transmitted reading. You see how far he goes to justify it. And what were they thinking? And these are distinguished Sahaba, Kiram. Never mind. There are many among cases of non-mass transmitted readings where we say this is the reading of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, but in the lone narrated hadiths, you see. So, therefore, this is not gratuitous. Plus, it has to do with understanding the facets of the Quran also, regardless of mass transmission, and hence it is helpful for tafsir. Then he moves on to the lexicology. Shahr, month, is from shuhra, renown, while Ramadan is the infinitive noun of ramidah, to scorch, to which shahr was added so that it became a proper noun. Ramadan moved from being an infinitive noun, a masdar, for scorching, to the name of a month, and was exempted, therefore, because of its being a proper noun, from inflection for that. So we now say Shahru Ramadana, as well as for the alif and noon, because of the alif and noon in Ramadan, just as da'ya, vertebra, was in Ibn Da'ya, son of vertebra, as a proper noun for the crow. Why? Because the crow, if it notices some kind of abscess on the neck of a camel, will peck at it until the vertebra shows. Subhanallah. For the same reason and due to the feminine. Explaining why Da'ya is exempt of inflection. He's saying, upon him peace, man sama Ramadan, whoever fasts Ramadan, involves a suppression of the governing annex. Yani, why didn't he say, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, man sama shahra Ramadan? The governing annex being shahr, the month of. Because there is no risk of confusion. Just like when you say Surat al-Baqara, when you're talking about the Qur'an, there's no confusion. You know, you mean the surah. So there's no need always to say Surat al. So same with Ramadan, Rajab, Sha'ban, instead of Shahru, every time. As illustrated in the hadith mentioned. The reason they named it so is because of their irtimad, writhing in it, due to the heat of hunger and thirst. Or after the burning away of sins in it. So, because Ramad literally is the scorching heat, scorching heat, but Ramadan may occur in the winter. So where is that meaning there? Well, the meaning is that the hunger creates writhing, and thirst creates a writhing of the stomach, grumbling and pressure on the stomach, and that is the heat meant in irtimad of Ramadan, or after the burning away of sins in it. That is one more remote of figurativeness, or because it coincided with the days of scorching heat at the time they transferred the names of months from the old idiom. Perhaps at the time that Ramadan became Ramadan, then it was days of scorching heat, and that name stuck, even when it became a revolving time through the year, beyond summer, in which was sent down the Qur'an. That is, its sending down began in it, which was in Laylat al-Qadr, the night of apportionment. Mawlana Shaykh Nazim would say, I do not like to call it the night of power. There is something missing in that, even though it is the night of power, but as the exact translation of Laylat al-Qadr, so that made me think that it needs a different translation. Or it was sent down in it wholly to the nearest sky. I sometimes translate it also as the night of worth. So the second meaning is that it was sent down wholly to Sama Dunya, after which it came down to earth piecemeal, يعني تنجما, يعني piece by piece, part by part. Or concerning which يعني الذي أنزل فيه, concerning which, فيه meaning concerning which, with regard to which, not only therein, as in the first two glosses, concerning which the Qur'an was sent down, namely his saying prescribed to you is the fast concerning which the Qur'an was sent down. You see, multiplicity of meanings here of الذي أنزل فيه, يعني أنزل في الصيام. It is related from the Prophet, upon him blessings and peace of Allah, the leaves of Ibrahim came down on the first night of Ramadan, the Torah came down on the 6th, the Gospel came down on the 13th, and the Qur'an came down on the 24th. And this is in the Musnad of Imam Ahmad and others, narrated from no less than 3 Sahaba. The relative pronoun with its relative clause together form the enunciative of the inchoative. يعني الذي form the khabar of the mubtada, شهر رمضان. The shahr is أنزل فيه, الذي أنزل فيه, together for, or its epithet, يعني its صفة. شهر رمضان المبارك, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن, epithet, يعني صفة, with whoever then, and then witnesses as the enunciative. Its epithet with whoever. The fa then serves to describe the inchoative, يعني the mubtada, with that which implies the meaning of a condition. فمن, meaning فإن, right? فمن شهد منكم الشهر, يعني إذا أو إن شهد, إن شهد, يعني if they witness. So whoever witnesses means that if they witness the month, that is a condition, which an inchoative which with that which implies the meaning of a condition. Therein is a notification that the sending down contains the cause of its being specified for the obligation of fasting. Yani the revelation implies in it the cause of the obligation of fasting, because the mention of the obligation is linked to the revelation. as if the revelation is the one that is the catalyst for the conditionality of fasting. Since it was revealed, you must fast. But in between is whoever witnesses the month. Okay. As a guidance for people and as manifest proofs from the guidance and the discernment. Al-Huda wal-Furqan. Two participial states, hal for the Qur'an, as a guidance and as manifest proofs. Hence the as to drive that point home. I could have just mentioned it once, but I put it in both clauses. And as manifest, not and manifest proofs, which is clear enough, but just for people to understand that. Hal and hal. I.e., it was sent down being a guidance for people with its inimitability and with clear verses such as guide to truth and separate between it and falsehood with the wisdoms and rulings it contains. Therefore, whoever of you is present during the month, let him fast it. Quote, whoever is stationary in the month, that's what present means. Shahida, to be present. فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ. And not traveling, let him fast in it. See, so Shahida has a fiqhi sense, not just to witness in the general sense. This is why I translate it as present, as opposed to traveling. Stationary. It would be normally whoever is present in it, let him fast during it. But the non-pronoun, month, replaced what would be the first pronoun during it for amplification. فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمْ الشَّهْرِ instead of فَمَنْ شَهِدَهُ مِنْكُمْ. This is a very frequent case in the Qur'an when the expected pronoun is omitted and the apparently redundant or clear enough noun, the overt noun, is put in because there is some emphasis intended there. And here it is the month. See? So instead of saying in it, let him fast during it, the non-pronoun month replaced what would be the first pronoun, during it. And during the month was put in for amplification in the accusative. فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ as a temporal vessel. That month becomes a dharf. The conjunction in was suppressed. Instead of saying فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمْ فِي الشَّهْرِ was replaced. That fi was dropped out. But the absolute sense of shahida remains, that it is intransitive. Month is not therefore the direct object of shahida. It is a zarf. Whoever is present during that month, like when we say al-yawma al-shahra, subhanallah. So the conjunction in was suppressed and the second pronoun fasted was put in the accusative in the extended sense. Fal yasum. The ha in the extended sense. Now the ha is a direct object in the extended sense. Fal yasum. I.e. by making the temporal vessel a direct object instead of saying fast on it, fast during it, as the footnote explains. It was also said that it means whoever of you perceives the new month of the moon, let him fast it, in the sense of a direct object. This is how we understand it more readily, in the weak sense. See, this is the weak gloss. It was also said. Whereas the strong gloss, the primary gloss, is what we need to work on in order to realize the depth of the richness of meanings intended there. And then we will catch the emphasis intended also in the month as a zarf. As when you say, I attended the Jumu'ah, that is its prayer. In such a scenario, the latter gloss, and whoever is sick or on a journey, then a number of alternative days is a specifier for it, mukhassis or tamyiz. فمن مخصصا له, specified. Now, since the traveler and the sick are both part of those who perceive the new month, and it might be that its repetition is due to that. And the repetition of the case of the sick and the traveler. Or so that it might not be imagined that it was abrogated the way its mate was. Namely, in the footnote, his saying, and due by those who can bear to perform it an expiatory fine to feed someone in want. That was abrogated because those who can bear to do it must do it. Whereas before abrogation, even if you could fast, you had the choice to not to fast. So that was abrogated. And only those who really cannot fast, who have an excuse, a valid excuse, those ones can take the dispensation of not fasting and paying the fidya. Before, they could not fast and pay the fidya even when they could fast. It's always better to fast. So even when you can make up and you have the option of paying the fidya instead, it is better to fast if you can to make up. And that includes the ahkam of Hajj also, and fidya for Hajj. And, the one God wants ease for you and He does not want difficulty for you. That is, He wants to facilitate things for you and not make them difficult. Hence, He permitted breaking the fast in travel and sickness. And so that you complete the number and exalt the one God over His guiding you, and perhaps you will give thanks. They are three causes. So, He wants ease for you. He does not want difficulty for you. And so that you complete the number and you exalt the one God and you give thanks. So, three causes. One, for a suppressed verb indicated by what precedes. That is, He made all that precedes law, namely, the command to the one who is present to perform the month's fast. 2. The beneficiary of dispensation to perform its belated make-up and observe the count strictly. And 3. The stipulation of the dispensation so that you will complete the number to the end of the verse by way of stylistic rolling up. Al-laf wal-nashr. Yani mentioning multiples, then mentioning what is known to belong to each of their individual elements without specifying, but trusting the listener can tell what belongs where. So there is three members of something which has three causes or reasons or benefits or rewards, and you are supposed to match correctly. They do not necessarily go in the same order in both sequences. So it is, you cannot just say respectively, that's it. Your intelligence is called upon to to realize what matches. That is what the laf and nashr means, and Qur'an uses that a lot. He explains, for His saying, and so that you complete the number, is the cause behind the command to observe the count strictly. He wants you to complete it strictly. And exalt the one God is the cause behind the command to perform the belated make-up and the clarification of its modality. And perhaps you will give thanks is the cause behind dispensation and facilitation. MashaAllah. Here is the explanation of the laf and nashr and how to match what with what. 2. Or they are causes for several acts, each with its own respective verb. i.e. in the footnote, the order to complete the count, the order to exalt Allah, and the order to give thanks respectively for this, and that part of the ayah. Now Roman numeral 2, or they are in copulative conjunction, يعني عطف with a subordinate clause, cause, يعني مقدر، يعني سبب مقدر, subordinate cause, such as so that he will make it easy for you, or so that you may know what you now know and complete the count. And these clauses in the ayah are in atf with something missing, which is muqaddar. You have to provide it. You have to subord it. Subordination is you provide what is missing. It is implied. Okay. So that is also a possible scenario for glossing the ayah. It is also possible for it, so yet another scenario, meaning the clause, to be in copulative conjunction, يعني عطف with ease, yusr, in the sense that, and he wants for you to complete, as in he's saying, they want so that they extinguish. يريدون ليطفئوا نور الله, the light of the one God. Surat al-Saf. So here, what is missing is for you to complete. يعني يريد لكم اليسر، يعني يريد أن تكملوا العدة. He wants for you to complete, but in a way that will be easy for you. In other words, if you cannot do it in a strict sense during the fasting month, then you can do it later. If you cannot do it at the same time as you are traveling, you can do it later. Like that. So that is why يعني يريد بكم اليسر. بكم اليسر is here يعني general. It is not specifically يعني how. What is the modality of that yusr? Well, the modality is clear from what preceded. You see? أيام أخر. فمن استطاع يعني فمن كان على سفر أو من كان مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر, يعني at another time, for those two cases, and that is the yusr meant. It is clear enough. Okay, so there are the laf and nashr scenarios, and then there is the general, going back to what was said before to explain that which is the weaker gloss, but the stronger gloss is the laf and nashr, what goes where, in a more specific way. What is meant by takbir, tukabbirullah, is the magnification of Allah, Allahu Akbar, Allah is greatest, with hamd, glorification, and thana, praise of Him. Hence it is transitivized with ala. كبر الله على ما هداكم. So كبره على شيء, to make takbir over something, يعني for reason of something, not just to make takbir, but to make takbir in relation to something. That is what he means by ta'diyah, transitivization of a verb which in itself is intransitive. takbir, كبر الله, خلاص كبر الله, يعني he said Allahu Akbar, but he say كبر الله على ما هداه, he made takbir over the fact that he was guided. That is translation with ala. It was also said that it means the takbir of the day of fitr, the end of festival. It was also said it is the takbir hailed out on seeing the new moon of the breaking the fast, the new moon of Shawwal. That is a takbir. Hilal. The hilal is the crescent moon, the new moon that we see in the sky. At that time, when you see the hilal, you make tahleel. Allahu Akbar, tahleel, which is to hail out. Even in English, it's like, this sounds the same. To cry out, to hail out the signal that the new moon has been seen. Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله وأنك عبد لله وأنا عبد لله. So you see the new moon and you hail out and you let people know. That is يعني التهليل of the new month. So هلل بالشهر, هلل بالشهر, to announce it. So that's what the takbir means here. That is one weaker gloss. But you see, it also makes a lot of sense. Ma, that, can stand for the infinitive noun, or that which he guided you. Ala ma hadakum. Yani, it can be standing, meaning over his guidance, as Shaykh Zada. That's what Z means here. Shaykh Zada has a more than one complete super commentary on Baydawi. Yeah, and I think that the one that is famous that we use is the middle one. It's a medium-sized one. Allahu Akbar. So it's 4 massive volumes. That's the medium size. Allahu Akbar. And Zada means son of. So he's the son of someone famous, but what remains as we identify him is we call him Shaykh Zada, and I think he was al-Qawqaji or something like that. His full name is known. طيب, Shaykh Zada says that in order to complete the count, meaning over his guidance. So that is the ma. It is, in other words, it is a ma masdariyah. His guidance is a masdar. يعني على ما هداكم means على هدايته لكم. ما masdariyah. Clear enough, right? So in other words, you can replace the verb with a noun, which is the masdar. That is a good, a very frequent scenario. Or that to which he guided you, يعني على ما هداكم, يعني to that to which he guided you, whatever. The reading وَلِتُكَمِّلُوا, which is also mass transmitted with tashdid, gemination of the meme instead of tukmilu. So tukammilu, fa'ala, yufa'il, right? Second form. So kammala, tukammilu, instead of tukmilu, which is the 4th form, akmala, which is Hafs from Asim. But the other reading in Brunei Dar Salam is Shu'ba from Asim. Did you know? But we do not hear it, but we have that also as the Mus'haf of Brunei Dar Salam. It's a lesser known fact, but is also, of course, one of the mass transmitted readings. And they are both from the Imam Asim. So when we say it's reading of Asim, it means both of them read it that way. But in this case, and in many other cases throughout the Qur'an, it is either one, either Hafs or Abu Bakr Shu'ba. Shu'ba, also known as Abu Bakr, as Imam Baydawi holds him. So, from Asim in Abu Bakr's narration, تكملوا والله تعالى أعلم وأحكم. So, I leave it to you to read the next part, because, mashallah, has it been an hour? وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد سيد الأبرار. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد ما أظلم ليل وأشرق نهار وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. اللهم إنا عبادك خلقتنا ونحن عبادك وأبناء عبادك وأبناء إمائك، نواصينا في يدك، ماض فينا حكمك، عدل فينا قضاؤك. نسألك بكل اسم سميت به نفسك أو أنزلته في كتابك أو علمته أحدا من خلقك أو استأثرت به في علم الغيب عندك، أن تجعل القرآن الكريم ربيع قلوبنا وجلاء أحزاننا وذهاب همومنا وشرح صدورنا وشفاء صدورنا ونور قلوبنا، وأن تجعل الصلاة والسلام على رسولك دأبنا وأدبنا، وأن تبلغنا رمضان، وأن ترزقنا أنواره وهداه وثمراته ومغفرته يا رب العالمين. ربنا اغفر لنا وارحمنا ولجميع المسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات. ربنا توفنا مسلمين وألحقنا بالصالحين. محمد سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. زيادة إلى شرف النبي المصطفى صلى الله عليه وسلم وآله وصحبه الكرام ومشايخنا ومشايخكم وسائر ساداتنا الصديقين، خاصة لروح أستاذنا وأستاذ أستاذنا الفاتح.